Hello, hello. It's Ed Ciarimboli, Corey Suda. We are back for the March edition of Under the Hood. We're super excited. We are also, have to be honest, we're actually very shocked. The last 2 months, lots of people have
way more than we expected.
way more than we expected when we started doing this. People have been very receptive. Great comments, great questions, and today is a really interesting topic, and obviously one that comes up, especially for us, like working in this space and doing this, kind of like what is so important about like that first 24, 48 hours, and even that first week after a truck crash. And I know we've been talking to a lot of truck drivers and obviously victims of truck crashes, but if you're a truck driver, pay even more attention, because this is even more important for you, because the things that are in your truck obviously can really help you both from a damage standpoint and a liability standpoint if there's a question of liability. So
No doubt about that.
yeah. So Corey, why don't we kind of jump into it and start walking people through it, and from the why do we always say, like, when somebody's in a tractor trailer crash, like obviously they want to be getting their medical treatment, and then you got to call a lawyer. I mean, you really do.
Yeah, I mean the first 24 hours are really critical in a tractor trailer crash, right? 24, 48 hours, especially from a personal injury standpoint. Defendants have, rapid response teams.
Yeah.
These trucking companies have rapid response teams that are going to be out immediately, before the injured party has representation most of the time.
So here's what that means. Like when Corey says rapid response, so what happens is, crash happens. The first call is usually not to 911.
Yeah.
The truck driver, they're usually, because the company knows there's been a crash, right? So he's calling the company, and then the company is getting on the phone to their lawyers. They're getting on the phone to their investigators. They're getting on the phone to their reconstructionists, and they are getting people to the scene, right, in order to try to lock down the evidence, and not lock it down from a objective standpoint, like, hey, we want to gather all this evidence. They want to get it from a subjective standpoint to try to make sure that it's in the best light possible for them.
Yeah, and I mean, these trucking companies know there's a crash even before the driver calls them.
No question about it.
With
the cameras, the phones, and all the telematics that are on it.
They have immediate notification that a crash occurs. First thing they're going to do is get out there. They're going to have an attorney. They're going to have an expert go out there, collect as much eevidence as possible for them. But only the evidence.
Only the evidence that's going to help them, right?
Exactly.
So here's why we say, because look, here's what the mechanics of this are just like this. Crash happens, police get called, ambulance, fire. So everybody's on the scene, and the police, I mean, their job is to make sure that they're going to gather evidence, but also get the roadway cleared as quickly as they possibly can.
Right,
because I mean, let's be honest. They don't want to have a roadway blocked up for 10, 12 hours, especially if it's a big crash, pile up, or a catastrophic crash. Yeah. So they're not necessarily looking at it from the perspective of that we are, right? Or the trucking,
right.
or
it's not really to their own fault, right? I mean, like they're trying to clear the roadway, because what are you going to do if you're on the highway and you're stopped, right? Everyone's complaining.
Yeah, everybody's bitching, everybody's complaining. Like, what the hell's going on? Let's, we gotta get to work. We gotta, whatever. Right. So here are kind of the hierarchy of like the most critical things that we want to take a look at immediately. One, the cameras, right? We used to say you got to get the truck. You got to get the truck. You got to lock down the truck. Yeah. But really, I would say, past 5 years, it has evolved into, you got to get the camera. There's forward facing, there's driver facing, and those are really going to tell the story about what happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, at this point, the trucks are pretty much locked down. I mean, you're going to be
No
able to
question.
get an inspection of the truck.
Yeah.
As long as you get an attorney involved, you know,
Relatively soon.
quick.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But the cameras, those are the things that, can really turn the tide of a case significantly from a case where, look, there may be no liability to a case that, there is a really good opportunity for you to make a recovery for you and your family.
Yeah.
Especially that's true whenever you have a case where somebody dies. And we've had so many cases where our clients have been killed, and the only story then that the police are getting is from the truck driver. Well, if the police, and you might be, this crash may happen in a location where they just don't have the manpower
Yeah, exactly.
in order to do all these downloads and everything else. So if that's the case, now all of a sudden, they're getting one side, and all the videos and the telematics that are on these trucks, those are going to tell the other side of the story. And very candidly, maybe they're right? They may be correct, but let's kind of go through the trust but verify, in that situation. And the reason that we say that first 24 hours is so important is because what happens to the video if you don't get it downloaded?
Well, it should be saved to a cloud.
Yeah.
That is not always the case. I should take a step back. It is the case, but the video could be deleted, right?
Yep.
So even if it's going to go to the cloud, it could still be deleted. But if you get the SD card that's inside the camera, you could do a download yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
So the SD card is really important. So there's a camera, and the camera is pointing at the driver, and then the camera is pointing out. So in a crash, that camera has a little SD card on it, and it kind of acts as like a DVR. It's constantly recording. These cameras now have unbelievable capability. I mean, they're recording in high def, and they're recording, basically up to 200 hours. Now, here's the only issue. So crash happens, no power to the truck. That does not mean that the camera does not have power and is not continuing to record. The camera has an internal power source, right? So even if there's no power to the truck, the camera's still recording. The camera's going to, let's say it's sit in a tow yard for a week, it's going to continue recording. And so now all that video from before the crash is going to be overridden by this video after the crash. And again, and that's, by the way, that is no fault of the trucking company. Right. And it's just how the camera works, right? So that's why it's so important to get that, get those preservation letters out and tell them to disconnect the power from the camera so that it stops doing that.
So preservation letter, I think we got to explain kind of what that is and why it's so important. I mean, the preservation letter goes to, as soon as we get a case, we send preservation letters out. We send it to the trucking company. We will send it to the driver of the vehicle, the insurance carrier,
the 911, tow truck, everybody.
Everyone who is involved in this crash, preservation letters go out. And those preservation letters are essentially what they sound like. It's asking these companies and entities to preserve information, preserve data, preserve video, preserve the vehicles so that we can inspect them. Because the last thing, like we just talked about, we don't want this stuff to get deleted. Because sometimes that's only evidence of what happened in the crash. If someone died, that's question. That's only evidence.
Especially, we have a case right now where everybody died. And so everybody died in this crash. So the only way that we're going to be able to figure out and kind of dissect what happened is through all of the videos, through the cell phones, through the download of the truck. So this technology becomes just critically important. And as Corey said, let's just say if that truck's sitting there for a week or a month or whatever, and all that video gets overwritten, now there still should be some cloud-based video, but that's that's a small portion of the video. I mean, we want to see what everybody's doing leading up to the crash, and obviously if they're if they're doing something that is not consistent with safe driving, like that's an really important fact. And so that is really what we need to help establish what happened. And look, at the end of the day, it may be nothing, right? But we don't know that. And so that's why, like, that first 24 hours is just so critical.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about, tractor trailer or car crashes are not tractor trailer crashes. Right. And it's because of all the extra data and information that can be gleaned from these tractor trailers, right? I mean, vehicles today have, a lot more features and forward collision and stuff like that, but the tractor trailers have all of that and more. Most of them have dash cams at this point, the electronic logs, and you're not going to be able to get that information from a vehicle, a car, but you're going to be able to get that from a tractor trailer.
Well, and there's some that you can get from a car, but like the tractor trailer is it's like on steroids, right? So I mean, you're going to have your forward collision avoidance mitigation system, right? That's the system that's supposed to stop if there's something in the roadway. That system, and the reason that first kind of 24, 48 hours is so important. If let's assume there's something in the roadway, that system is going to be sending out alerts, right? Well, those alerts are admissions. Those alerts are admissions that there was a problem. Right. And so now if those alerts are ignored, or we have a case right now where a guy was driving on the road, he had big noise canceling headphones on, right? So if he's driving down the road, he's got big noise canceling headphones on, he's not going to hear the alerts. Right?
Well, and that's the thing, the cars, no one has an obligation to watch. Like, there's like, you're driving around in your vehicle. You don't have, like, you're not watching you're my employer. You're not watching what I'm driving. Yeah,
like, it's a good point. Like, I didn't dispatch Corey to come to work today. Like, I'm not watching, but trucking companies are different, right? They're dispatching drivers. They're monitoring drivers. Yeah. It's how, they're getting paid by the load or paid by the mile. They need to know where they're at all times in order. That's how they function, right? That's their business. And so, to Corey's point, like, it's so much different than just a regular passenger car. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that they just kind of treat it as that type of crash. And I will tell you, without question, if you do, then you're going to get car crash results, right? Instead of, a result that is commensurate with the injuries and the nature of a truck case.
Right. So let's kind of explain that a little bit. If there is information and data that we could see from the days, hours and weeks leading up to the crash, how could you use that against the trucking company or the driver to prove negligence?
Yeah. So, obviously, like, you have the crash, right? So let's just take, like, you got the crash, that's this moment in time. And whatever the driver, whatever he or she's doing at that moment, obviously is a very important piece of why this crash happened. But now, let's say that, you start to back it up. You back it up 3 hours, back it up 5 hours, back it up 10 hours. If we see a pattern of behavior, and that behavior is, drivers on the phone, watching a video, eating, drinking, whatever, and not consistent with safe driving behavior, now we have a pattern that starts to establish that this driver is a danger on the roadway. Why is that so important? Because those patterns send alerts to the trucking company. So the trucking company, from the video and from all these other telematics that are on the trucks, they absolutely can then monitor and pull somebody off the road before a crash happens. And that's why these cameras are, A, so powerful, but B, designed for safety for the trucking industry. And so, they know that the cameras work. Companies that utilize the cameras and have a dedicated person to monitor all this their crash statistics are far less than other companies that do not. It's just a fact.
And in Pennsylvania and most states, quite frankly, there are direct negligence claims against the company. So a company has a duty to monitor, to supervise, to train their employees. And if they're not doing so, that's a way you could prove negligence against the company.
And so now let's spin this. And you're the tractor trailer driver, right? And you've been hit by another tractor trailer driver. Well, now even more important, because all of those telematics that we just talked about that are on the truck are on your truck, and now what they can do is show that you didn't do anything wrong. That's most important, that you were doing everything right that particular day. And then secondly, that inward facing camera, it shows the mechanism of injury, right? So let's say that, your head slams off of something. Yeah. Now you have a video showing that you sustained a head injury in that crash. Let's say that you're getting thrown back and forth and your arm slants up. Now you have objective evidence to show that you have an injury to that particular part of your body. So it only helps you in the case.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I'm sure tractor trailer drivers don't want to be on video nonstop. I wouldn't want to be on video, sitting at my desk every day.
Well, right? God only knows. If we had a video on court, well, first of all, he wouldn't be there. He'd be out golfing or God only knows what he would do.
The weather gets a little warmer. Yeah.
But so the video
wouldn't show much.
The video wouldn't show much, but. It's I mean, look, it's an inconvenience for sure, but the reality is it saves lives.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Absolutely.
It saves lives, and it helps prove, your innocence.
Oh,
right?
my
It
gosh,
can help
no
prove
question.
that you did nothing wrong. Right? So
no question about it.
If you're abiding by the law and abiding by the rules of the road, it's only going to help you.
It's only going to be helpful without question. Anytime that we hear, from the other side that, they don't want to give this video up, that the drivers have this or that, we know that company, that they've watched that video, they know there's a problem, because otherwise they would say, here it is. Yep. It shows that our guy did nothing wrong. And so, we know. I mean, we're like a dog on a bone whenever they start fighting with us on it, because we're like, it's a smoking gun. We know that driver, they have been doing absolutely terrible stuff on the road.
Well, and not to mention, we also know if the driver is, there are ways to stop this video, right? I mean, we have a case right now that driver put a hat over the camera so you can't see.
Hat, tape, whatever.
I've had a client that taped over, and he says he wasn't doing anything wrong, but we know that can't be the case. I mean,
I mean, let's be honest. So if you know that the camera is designed to watch you and watch what you're doing, and you make a conscious decision to say, well, I'm going to cover that up, most people out there are going to look at that and say, you're covering it up because you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, without question. I mean, the one case where the guy covered it up was drinking while he was driving, literally drinking on the job. So, and had the company not allowed him to do that because they knew he was doing it, they would have known that this guy was drinking. They could have pulled him off before he caused a catastrophic crash, and hurt, multiple people really bad.
I mean, we have another one where the guy covered up and he was on FaceTime for 3 minutes before the crash. Right?
So kind of like moving beyond that 24 hours, like what, those are some of the things that you want to kind of get your hands on. And then the next thing is we are wanting to get to the scene as quickly as possible, document all the evidence as quickly as possible. Poor Catherine. So Catherine Romanowski is one of our newest lawyers, and
she's doing a great job.
She's doing a fantastic job. Catherine is, she's super, super, super smart, And so these inspections, I mean, Corey and I go to them all the time, but I mean, most of the time, like they're in some shitty tow yard.
Oh yeah,
it's not. I mean, it's not the nicest place in the world.
If there's one in like Miami or something,
we're ready to go. Yeah, but it wouldn't be in the nice part of Miami. It'd be in some nasty part.
Exactly.
So we had some other stuff going on. We had to get this inspection done, and so poor Catherine had to spend 2 days in 2 days in West Virginia.
Raleigh County.
Yeah, Raleigh County, West Virginia, and it was raining and snow. So, it's not, being a trial lawyer and doing this work is not as glamorous as you think it.
And in that case, it was a truck of raw chicken.
Yeah.
So imagine how that
Nasty
smelled.
smell.
I think about a month after the crash.
But here's why these inspections are so important, right? Beyond the telematics, beyond getting all that stuff, you get there and your boots on the ground quickly. You start to see lots of stuff in the truck, and it starts to give you an idea of kind of how that particular person values their job, whether they're cleanly or not cleanly, and every now and then you get some real gold. We had a case a number of years ago where we saw that this guy had fake urine. Or not fake. It was real urine.
But it was someone else's,
synthetic
right?
urine. So he was using the synthetic urine to beat drug tests, right? And so, you only are going to be able to put that together if your boots on the ground doing the inspection.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't there a bottle of Yukon Jack in one of them?
There was bottle of Yukon Jack in one of them as well.
And we don't get that if we don't get that if we don't go out to the scene and get these inspections.
And I mean, you got to get a feel for it. For sure. I mean, Corey has like a whole inspection outfit that he wears. It's like, I think it's Gucci or Prada. He shows up with like all
I
these.
sit in my car with the heat on.
He shows up with these beautiful boots on. And
I think I learned real quick that's not what he does.
Not at all. I had to go to one. This is a good story. So we had a crash happen in Georgia, and it was on the Alabama Georgia line, and so the car gets towed to like this really remote tow yard in Georgia, and so I have to fly down. We're gonna go do the inspection, and we show up, and so we wanted the airbag module from our client's car. We're gonna do the truck inspection in our client's car because the airbag module tells you speed, tells you steering, tells you a bunch of stuff. So I show up, and the guy won't give me the airbag. The owner of the tow truck, the tow yard. By the way, picture like a tow yard in the backwoods of Alabama from a movie, and this is exactly what it was. Like dogs barking everywhere, barbed wire fence. I mean.
White tank top on.
Yeah, the guy I think was smoking 3 cigarettes at the same time
with a big lip in, probably.
Yeah. And so I show up and I'm like, hey, I'm here to I got to collect this, and he won't let me have it unless I give him $500 cash. $500 cash. So I have to give him $500 cash in order, and then I had him sign like an evidence log, and that we were taking the evidence. It's like we had a form,
a chain
of custody form, but I had to give him $500 cash. And the best part about it's pouring down rain, muddy as hell, and the defense lawyers show up, full suits on. And the dogs go running by them all. They got white shirts on, gray suits. The dogs go running by, mud all over these guys. And after I gave the guy $500 cash, I was his best buddy. And he's like, these guys are the worst.
I had the same thing happen to me one time in Philadelphia, actually.
Yeah,
right outside. Our client did not have auto insurance, and defense wanted to inspect the vehicle. It was an older vehicle, so I knew there was not going to be any data on it.
Yeah.
They're like, we need $3,000
Cash.
Yeah, $3,000. You got to buy the vehicle
Yeah,
back
yeah,
from.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Defense ended up paying the $3,000
That's
for it.
great.
Yeah, we
That's
didn't
great.
have to pay.
Yeah, that's
pay
the stuff,
$1.
by the way, that they don't teach you in law school.
No.
Like you're gonna end up in a tow yard in the backwoods of Alabama, dealing with some guy a bunch of dogs that want to rip you from limb from limb, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than the tow yards too, I mean, we're going to the scene, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what, I guess, I mean, I know, but what can we glean from the scene when we go there?
Yeah, so the scene inspection is really important for a couple of reasons. One, let's say that there's a potential roadway defect, right? Well, you got to get. I mean, we have a good friend, Jay Vaughn. Like, if he doesn't go to the scene of this crash, the case ended up trying. They got a $75 million verdict, but if he doesn't go to the scene, he never puts this case together because there was a roadway drop off and there was a paving project. And what they saw was that there was a crumble, meaning that they hadn't finished the project, right? And so the driver had left the roadway. The driver was high, but when he tried to get back on the roadway, he couldn't get back on. And then as a result, he ends up crossing into the other lane and killing somebody. But it was all because, so Jay, he and his investigator go to the scene, they see this, and now they're able to say, oh man, that shouldn't be there. And so they were able to start putting it together that this company had not done the paving, had not finished it, and that was the reason that they had this drop off. So I mean, you want to look at the roadway to see if there's any defects that either could have caused or contributed to the crash. And that, I mean, roadway defects could be a variety of things. They could be a drop off. We have a case right now where telephone pole was in the wrong spot. It was rotted, snapped off, and killed somebody. So I mean, if you don't get to the scene and get to the scene within a pretty quick amount of time, or reasonable amount of time after the crash, that stuff all goes away.
Right, and not only defects though. I mean, you're going to be able to see like gouge marks and stuff like. So if a tractor trailer is breaking, you're going to be able.
I'll tell you a great story about that. It literally, so a number of years ago, we had a case where Kayla McGrady was our client. She was 15 years old. Kayla was in the back seat of a car. A kid named Scott Smith was driving, going really fast in Pittston, Pennsylvania. And so they're like, going around these corners, and the one particular corner did not have what's called a chevron sign, a turn ahead. And there's a difference between like the gouge marks, like if it's a yaw mark or, a skid mark, there's differences there. So what we saw, this was a yaw mark, meaning that the driver recognized too late that there was a curve, and when he turned the wheel, it left a side yaw. It's called a yaw mark, critical speed yaw mark.
It's like an indentation in the pavement.
Right, and so we knew then that the driver, because the defense in this case tried, and the defense was that this kid was not paying attention, and then ended up going into this culvert, and Kayla was ejected, and she died. And so the defense was like, he didn't react. And if we don't go to the scene right after and document that this yaw mark is there, we lose the case, because this yaw mark showed that he did react. He just reacted too late, and the reason that he reacted too late is because there wasn't an advance of the curve, a warning, the chevron sign. It didn't say the curve was going to be there. Then what we were able to do in that case was show that along that road, along all the other curves, like 6 or 7 other curves, there were chevron signs, and he had no problem navigating any of those. So it was the one curve, I still remember, it was called a horizontal over vertical curve. The one curve that didn't have the chevron sign was where he didn't. It's at night. He doesn't react in time. Goes off the roadway into this culvert and ends up dying. So that, like, Corey's 100% right. Like, those things, those pieces of evidence can make or break the case, without question. And the problem is, if when we were there, a day or two afterwards,
Right.
if we're there 2 weeks afterwards, might not be there.
Well, it might not be there, and then or defense could argue that it was caught. It got there some other way,
Right.
right? There were,
Right.
another vehicle made those indentations, another
Yep.
vehicle made those skid marks. So the quicker you get out there, the better. I mean, the state police or the police department that's investigating it should be taking pictures of all this stuff, but again, they're busy. They're trying to clear the scene. Sometimes it's night. You can't see everything.
Yep.
Some police departments, don't have the capability to. They don't have car units.
No,
right?
I mean, hey, we're in a case up in Vermont right now, and the state of Vermont had to call Maine in order to come and
to do the investigation.
Do the investigation of the crash. Yeah. And here's the other thing. So what you have to understand is that the police are going to be looking at a crash from the standpoint of trying to determine whether a crime was committed.
Right. It's criminal.
So they're not going to be looking at it from the standpoint of, did the driver comply with the rules and standards of their company? Did the driver comply with the rules and standards of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration?
Other than maybe hours of service.
Hours,
look at,
maybe.
Yeah.
But we know I just did depositions in a case yesterday where the driver's logs are 2 days, the day of the crash and the day before. Total log violations. Police never looked at it.
Oh, we've seen vehicles moving and both drivers sleeping. So.
Yeah. That's that as well. That's the other reason that all this. So this information is so important. Like, you have electronic logs, and they can be manipulated, right? I mean, we've seen it. We've literally seen it where the download of the truck showed that the truck was moving, and the two drivers' logs said both of them were sleeping.
Right, and the police don't have the manpower to look into that.
No,
right?
not at all.
So unless you have an attorney looking and an expert, going through all that data, you're going to miss all that.
You're 100% going to miss it. And again, the state police they're doing the best they can, but their focus is on different things, and so that's why,
as it should be.
Yeah, I mean, we as soon as we get in the case, we're reaching out to local authorities and saying, just let us know what you need. Yeah. How can we be of assistance? Typically we're telling the defense the same thing, like, hey, let's all get the right information. Let's all get the data. We want to make sure that everybody's, because the data, it's either going to be helpful, but if it's hurtful to our case, we want to know that immediately.
And a lot of the defense attorneys we work with are great about doing that, right? I mean, there's
most of them.
Right. I mean,
most of them.
Yeah. I didn't say everyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of them we've got relationships with them now, and they want to get the same information that we
do, because it helps them, and we know the ones that are always fighting us. The reason being is they usually represent, they're usually representing terrible clients, and they have something to hide,
and they're the ones we uncover.
Those are the ones. Those are the ones that after you really fight like hell, it does not end up going well for them at all.
So we talked a little bit about like going out to the scene and us going there, but let's talk about like the experts that we employ and have go out and what their role.
Yeah. So I mean, every case we have a crash reconstructionist. I mean, that's just in the cases that Corey and I are working on, it's an absolute necessity. You also have human factors experts. A human factors expert is somebody that is going to be dealing with things like perception, reaction time. They're going to be dealing with conspicuity. And the conspicuity is everybody's got reflectors on their cars. That's called conspicuity, right? There's conspicuity tape, there's conspicuity reflectors, and that conspicuity is, how you visually perceive something, at a distance. So you got human factors experts. If their fatigue's an issue, you got a fatigue
Yeah.
expert. We have biomechanic experts. If there's an issue as to the mechanism, of injury, these are all people that are really, subspecialties of the reconstructionist, but
Safety experts.
safety experts, trucking experts, they're all kind of it can be a necessary experts in any particular trucking case, which again kind of goes back to why you want to be on top of these so quickly, because the quicker that you can identify those issues and engage those experts, then the more evidence you're going to have.
Yeah.
And the more evidence that you're going to have, the easier it's going to be for them to put together their reports.
I mean, they're not guessing on how the crash happened, or should he have been able to see him, right? All this stuff that we talked about earlier, and the evidence that we're getting from the trailer from the scene, they use all that in order to determine how this happened.
Yeah.
Right. It's a science. There's science.
There's so much. I have a physics minor, and it's like the one thing that still to this day I use quite a bit, because it's part of what we do, and a lot of times we'll start our investigation on a crash, and it'll take us in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out, why didn't this truck stop? Case in West Virginia is a perfect example. Like we know that this guy wasn't able to stop. And if you watch the video kind of on its face just looks like this truck driver is just out of control.
Yeah.
And now as a result of the inspection and everything else, we're starting to find out the brakes malfunction, right? And so
brakes.
now, those faulty brakes, all right, now that then kind of leads us into the next step. Like, well, is the faulty brake issue one that is a maintenance issue, or is it a product issue?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to start, kind of putting all that stuff together, for our client, because our job is to hold everybody accountable that had a role in causing this particular catastrophe. And if you don't, then the defense can be sitting there in court and saying, well, hey, nobody ever looked at the brakes. I mean, the brakes failed. And if it's a product issue, then the truck company, rightfully so, is going to be saying you should have sued the brake manufacturer. Why don't you sue the brake manufacturer? So it becomes really important to dot the I's and cross the T's on that, on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention, the trucking company has a certain amount of coverage only, right?
Yep.
And if that coverage is not enough to cover the loss, you have an obligation to the family to, figure out if this brake issue was...
No question. And this case that we're working on in West Virginia is a prime example of that, because we represent a truck driver, and he was an owner operator.
Yep.
Doesn't have any other drivers. Doesn't have any life insurance, and the workers' comp is workers' comp law for somebody who is single, no children, no dependents.
It's not great.
It's terrible. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible.
If you don't have a dependent, like, your family cannot get anything.
Nothing.
From workers' comp.
It's just terrible. So, this. I mean, his mom, his sister, everybody's turning to us and saying, "Man, like, this just doesn't, like, what can we do?" And so, now we need to make sure that we're running down every single possibility, for this family. It's our job. It's what we have. What we got to do.
So, all right, we talked about experts. We talked about, what information we get from the scene and from the truck, but it's also important to get cell phone information.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Cell phones.
It's becoming, today, you're not going to be able to get that from the truck.
No,
obviously.
I would say the top two things now are the camera is number one for us, and then cell phone is number two.
Yeah, and it's not just getting cell phone records, right?
No,
I
you got
mean,
to do a mirror image
Yeah.
download to see what was
yeah,
going
so
on.
let's explain that a little bit.
Yeah.
A mirror image download, essentially, we have an expert that's going to be able to look at a cell phone or an iPad or a laptop and figure out exactly what that person was doing, what app they were using, what time they were using it, what if they're using a streaming service or anything like that.
Watching a movie.
Right. Yeah, so it's not just, well, he wasn't on a phone call or was not on a phone call, he was or was not texting. He was watching YouTube at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, the FaceTime, that case, like cell phone, the cell phone data shows he was on FaceTime at the time of the crash. He's on FaceTime with his
Girlfriend's
daughter. And even worse on that one, like the phone, he was looking under, he's literally says he's like looking under the dash for something.
So
he
something. Covers the camera. He puts his hat over the camera.
Right.
He's on FaceTime with his girlfriend's daughter, helping her pick out a birthday present. And he's looking for his water jug, which is in the passenger, the floor of the passenger seat of the tractor.
Driving an 80,000-pound tractor trailer.
Has his head underneath the steering wheel for 10 seconds at least. And then he runs off the road and hits our client.
That's
another tractor trailer driver.
Right. That is very dangerous. I don't even have to tell you how dangerous that is. But it's, the cell phone, it shows, it shows all that. It shows the apps that are, as Corey said, the apps that are running, phone calls, text messages, whether they're, if they're watching a video or whatever, whatever it may be. And we always, like the cell phone, that's not something that, we don't need days of that, right?
No.
Like, I mean, we really want to see what was going on in the 24 hours before the crash. One, because here's the other reason. Let's say that the driver drives the maximum 11 hours on this day, right? So now they have to stop and they have to take 10 consecutive hours off to get proper rest, right? Well, most of these men and women that are out there, they go into the sleeper berth, right? So now if you get the phone and you could show that during that 10 hours where they're supposed to be resting, they're not resting, they're talking to people, watching movies, whatever.
Surfing the internet.
And so now the rest, that period, now if it's supposed to be 10 hours, now if they're only getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep, you have what's called cumulative fatigue, which is a real thing. And now, they don't get into that circadian rhythm. And so now when they come back on duty, even though technically they may have been in compliance with the rules by virtue of their log, they stopped driving, they went into the sleeper berth. Well, now you can show, well, hey, they only got 2 hours of sleep. And so now when they come back on duty, they're already in a fatigued condition. Yeah. So, that's the kind of, those are the kind of things that you can start to put together whenever you have, that data.
Yeah, and there's so many studies out there saying, fatigue driving is just as bad as drunk driving. Right?
If not worse.
So, it's really important to get that. And on the flip side, you should get it from your client as well. I just settled a tractor trailer case. Our client, unfortunately passed away, and our client drove into the tractor trailer.
Yeah,
he couldn't see him, and it was at dusk, and he couldn't see him, or at dawn. I'm sorry, and one of the defenses was that, well, he must have been distracted. He must have been on his cell phone. Well, luckily. Actually, I think the cell phone.
We have it.
I think the cell phone is right here.
It is right there. Yeah, that's it.
So,
in the evidence bag, there it is. Yeah.
I didn't even mean to do this, but this is the cell phone. We were able to collect the cell phone. We did a download of this.
Yep.
And at the mediation, I was able to show the mediator and defense attorney he was not on his cell phone, and because of that, we were able to get the case resolved.
Yeah, the case was. But again, so we always say like we're doing it like with our own client stuff and. Look, there's been times where we're like, shit, that's not good. Yeah. That's not good at all. And we make a decision to, we got to tell the clients like, hey, I'm sorry, but this didn't go. You lied to us, right? You were on the phone, you were distracted, whatever it may be. So it does become like just video first, phone second, and then all the other data that's on the truck, your GPS data, your steering data, acceleration data, the lane departure warnings, collision avoidance warning, all that stuff is just, I mean,
electronic logs.
Yeah, all that stuff becomes so important. Putting together all these trucking cases, which kind of brings us full circle. Like, look, if you go hire the guy who did your divorce, it's not going to go well, right? It's just not. I mean, I'm board certified in this. Hopefully Corey's going to pass next month.
Yeah, I got the 2 months in May. I got to finish the application.
Yeah, I tell you, June is going to be a really interesting episode because Corey will either have passed his board certification in tractor trailer crashes or failed, and believe me, it'll be a fair amount of ribbing if he's got to take this thing again.
I'm not afraid of the test. The application has so much information. The
application is. It's a bear. I will give you that.
I might be signing like my firstborn away.
The application is. Speaking of, how is the baby?
She's great. Sleeping all night, rolling over, giving me attitude.
Life changes once they start to be able to roll over and sit up. For sure.
Yeah, she's not. We're working on sitting now.
Okay.
But rolling over. I put her on her back. She immediately rolls over. So she loves it.
We'll have to get her behind the wheel of a tractor trailer.
So to, I guess, put a bow on this, right? What happens, like, if someone doesn't hire a lawyer immediately, right, and they sit on it? Are they shit out of luck, right? Or
you're not shit out of luck, but you make it harder on yourself for sure, because as we talked, I mean, some of this stuff doesn't go away, right? So some of the data is always going to be there. It's in the cloud. You got to go get it. You got to figure out. And you got to have people that are competent to be able to do that. I mean, this is something we do every single solitary day, so it's kind of second nature to us. But you do. I mean, not gonna bullshit you. Like, you make your case harder when you, in a tractor trailer case, when you do not get to a lawyer early on, especially in cases where, if it happens in a very rural section of the state, where we've seen this repeatedly, they don't do a reconstruction unless somebody dies, right? That's their. So if you are, let's say you are literally paralyzed, they're not doing a reconstruction in your case. They're coming out, they're getting a driver vehicle exchange, they're not doing downloads, they're not doing measurements, they're taking maybe taking some photographs of the scene. But if there is not a death, there are many police departments and sheriff's departments that have a policy that says no reconstruction. So it makes it even more important, to be able to do that. So it doesn't tank your case, but certainly makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah, I mean, you can't count on the trucking company to do this stuff, right? You can't count on the police to do it. You got to make sure that you're hiring someone to go out there and get this stuff done.
Yeah.
Or you got to live with the results. If you sit on it and you don't do anything immediately. I mean,
and we always talk. Again, we started this podcast Under the Hood. Kind of talk because we represent so many truck drivers all over the country. Like, you guys are, you men and women that are driving trucks are working hard. We know that, and you're involved in a lot of crashes. Be proactive. Like, when that happens, your trucking company, not necessarily your friend, right? I mean, they're they got a job to do, and that job doesn't necessarily coincide with your interests or your family's interests, right? They're looking out for themselves. They're going to certainly want to get that load delivered, right? And so, those are the things that you have to just say, hey, wait, look, let's take a pause. Let us get all the, data and video, because it's only going to help you, in the long run, especially in these types of cases.
Yeah, and the most important part, other than preserving the data, make sure you're getting the medical treatment you need.
Oh yeah,
right.
yeah.
You know, don't worry about getting the load to wherever you need to take it. Worry about your health.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to drive tractor trailers anymore if your health.
No,
is
we
in
had
decline.
we'll wrap it up. We had a case where a guy broke his leg and got back in the truck. It was his left leg. I don't even know how he pushed the clutch.
I was going to say, how does he
broke his femur was shattered, and this guy drove another like 5 hours with his shattered femur just to get a load delivered, and his leg was shot. I mean, by the time he got done, like I think he had 4 or 5 significant surgeries, and he's like, I had to get the load there. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, like. No, you didn't have to get the load. You didn't have to get the load.
Your leg's
there.
a little more important.
Yeah, your leg is definitely more important. So with that, I think that's all we got for today.
It is. Thanks for tuning in. We're gonna do some themes going forward. We started today kind of talking about the investigation.
Yep. We're gonna have some themes.
That.
Mardi Gras,
Golf Masters theme.
Yeah. We're gonna because we had a lot of people, like, they reached out and said, can you talk about like one specific thing?
Go more in depth.
More in depth. So get it. It's like, we could talk. Corey and I could, we could talk a cat off a fish truck, for God's sakes. We can talk about anything you want, for sure. So I think starting in April, that's going to be something that we'll roll out. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you everybody for the questions. This is a blast for me and Corey to be able to do this, and stay safe out there. If you have any questions, about any of what we talked about, as all of our cell phone numbers, emails, Susa text, whatever. Happy to answer any additional questions. So thanks everybody.
Thank you.